Hello and welcome back to the Scale Modelling Cafe. My name is Jamie and welcome to another video, a little sort of chat thing. Sort of like a sprue tool, but this time a tool, not a kit. And it's the Galaxy Tools, along with this, rivet wheel. Now I'm a massive fan of riveting models. I do it all the time. It's probably one of the main reasons why Eduard are one of my favourite manufacturers, because their kits are riveted. Not to everybody's tastes. I know there's a big debate to be had. Is it realistic? You can't see rivets. Yes, you can. That argument, I'm not going to go into that now. Maybe on another video, talking about accuracy, etc. But for me, personally, I like them, even though I do strive for accuracy in my models. I do find that they look really rather bland if they're not riveted. It just makes it look more, makes it look busy, and you can see the effects of the rivets even if you can't see the rivets themselves a lot of the time. So that's why I prefer to do it. Now what I'm doing is I'm riveting a model at the moment, and I'm going to show you how I do that, how we're using this new system. That this is the first time I've used it on that model. It's the AN-2 Colt, so you may, depending on when you're watching this, it may be up or it may be coming soon. It all depends when you're watching. In fact, here's one of the wings. Obviously it's a biplane, and it was a fabric covered biplane, but this is a what if. This is a post-apocalyptic model, so I'm doing it riveted. So that's what I'm using it. That's why I'm doing an AN-2 Colt, and it's got rivets on. So I'll tell you what, enough of the waffle. Let's pop over to the bench, and first of all I'll show you the product itself and then how I use it. Okay, over to the bench. Okay, the Galaxy Tools rivet wheel system. So the first thing we get is this natty little handle here with a chuck and a cover on the end, and this is what it looks like. Obviously I bought two, so you've got this sort of standard sort of chuck thing going on there, and then what you get are these wheels. So I bought 3 sets. This one is 0.55, 0.65, 0.75. This is 1.0 or 1.25, 1.5. And then this one is 0.3, 0.4, 0.5. And that is pertaining to the distance between the teeth on the wheels. If you open up the box, it's really nicely packaged actually in this sort of foam thing in this box. And if you just lift out the sponge job, which is actually really dense and firm, you get this Allen key and then this spanner. They are for, on the wheel, on the back here, just move that out of the way, let's just zoom in, why not? We'll make sure it's in focus. On the back here you've got this nut that you put the little spanner thing, oops, come on, there you go. So you put the spanner on the nut like that, and then you can release and tighten this thing just will not stay in focus. There we go. You tighten up or loosen the wheel itself, which is clamped in there. Now, when you get it in the package, it's done up really tight, so tight you can't move it. So you're going to need to use that to loosen it off, and then you can move it around. So we'll just move that over there, and then just to put it in, it's actually quite difficult because it doesn't open quite that wide enough. So what I have found is just take it out, push it in, comme ça,
Which way round does that go? That way round. Yeah, that way round. And then you just screw this back up, tighten it up, and there you go. You have your rivet wheel, which is all ready to go. So let's just zoom out. And I've got a pile of bits here, just out of shot, that I need to rivet this whole airframe. But I've got one of the upper wings. This is the current project. This is the Hobby Boss AN-2. What I've done is I've actually rescribed this wing, but because it had this horrible fabric, this is going to be a what if, so it's going to be metal covered. And what I've done is I've just rescribed the lines, and then I've gone over with some black oil paint, polished it away, because that's going to be much easier to see the recessed lines, because we don't want to go over them. Obviously, most kits these days come with, in fact pretty much every kit these days comes with recessed panel lines, so obviously you don't need to do that. But you may want to, on some of the finer sort of 70-second stuff, you may want to just deepen the lines. But there we go. Now we're ready. So, various tools and things that I use to help me get a straight edge. The first thing is this little flexible metal ruler. I got this from, this was from MDC when I bought their rivet punch set quite a long time ago now, quite some years ago. That's why there's those little holes in it, so you can actually punch through the holes. So I use that. Excuse me. I also use Dymo tape as well, and what I do is I stick it to just a normal sort of Tamiya or Kip type tape, and that way it keeps it stick. If you just use the Dymo tape on its own, very rapidly it'll lose all its stick. So I use that. The other thing I use is this clear tape, which is for scribing, and it's really useful stuff because it's clear, so you can see the lines underneath if you need to. So I use that as well. What I also use is, where's my pen? Here it is. I just use a 0.05 pen, and you can use that to mark out where some of your lines in between the panel lines are going to go. So that's all the kit I use. Now the first job I do is I rivet along both sides of the panel lines. So just like this, I will line it up, and I prefer using the metal one because it is a stiffer guide. If this wanders off over your Dymo tape, then all you do is end up riveting the Dymo tape. Hold it in, and using quite a bit of pressure, very firm, is I just slowly go along, and we can pull that away and get right to the edge. Job done. Now you're not going to be able to see that, but I can feel that. I'll do this longer one. Now I'm right on the trailing edge here, so I've got to be careful that I don't slip. Just making sure I'm not in the panel line, I'm against the metal edge. And it's just starting to move, so just got to be quite careful. And we can go along, take it away, and we're against the edge. If you're brave, you can do it freehand. So I'm looking down, I hope my head doesn't get in the way of this. Just move it this way a bit so it's easier for me. And then all I do is, again, slowly go along the line and move around and make sure I go right to the edge. And that's it. Turning it around, now the vertical, if you like, same again, I'm just going to do this freehand, put it up against the edge, and then with quite a lot of pressure, That's that side done. Now the other side. There we go. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to finish off that, go around all the panel lines. So just join me in a sec and I'll show you how I do the rest. Okay, so that's the panel lines riveted. Now what we need to do is fill in the bits in between. So it's just a little bit of a rough bit there. I'll get rid of that. Right. Now I've got the advantage on this one because there were some raised ribs that were moulded in that I sanded off, and it's actually left a shadow, and that happens sometimes to your advantage. So what we can do is just with the pen we can just mark where those ribs were, because I can still see them. That one's already been done. That was the test one. And then using the metal ruler, I'll go this way actually, because otherwise I'm going to smudge my marks. Let's bring you in a bit, make sure we're focused. Now the advantage I've got on this kit is the corrugations on the this bit here, which is the fuel tank. So right, where have I put my rivet wheel? Here it is. So, having had all this lined up, then we just take the rivet wheel and we're just going to draw in up to that panel line, but I'm also going to do the leading edge as well. Like that. And then we'll just work our way along, making sure we're parallel. You see I just twisted the rivet wheel round because the nut's actually quite bulky on that side, so I want it on the Allen key side. Again, pushing quite hard, making sure it all stays parallel, and I'm just going to work my way along. Down the other side. And we'll just keep going. Now the leading edge is obviously going to get sanded when I deal with the seam, which is not a problem, because what you can do is, once you're ready, all the seams have gone, been sanded down, is if you just gently move the wheel, I'll just do it here, you can just gently move the wheel up and down, and eventually, just like that, you'll feel the teeth drop in to the rivets, and then all you've got to do is just go around the curve then. And I'm not actually going right to the seam anyway, just because of where the curve is, and onto the bench. Now it's quite dull, I will admit, and it is because you're using quite a lot of pressure. My left arm is starting to ache already, so it is fatiguing, this, physically and mentally, because it's very tedious. It's easy to switch off and then all of a sudden you slip or you get a wonky line. But it's not too much of a disaster because you can just sand it out, maybe use a bit of filler if it's really deep. I've not actually done the leading edge for that one, so I'll just do leading edge. Yep, so you just polish it out with the sanders. Restore the panel lines if you need to. And you've got a repair job. There we go. And don't worry about the ink. That'll you can just wipe that away with a wet finger. So that's that bit there. Now we need to do the main part all the way along here. So I'm just going to mark that out now. And what you can do is just do a couple like this. So that's a bit of a wonky one there. So I'll just take that out. What I also tend to do is here, where there's a panel line, I actually scribe this panel line over one of the shadows, so I know that it's equidistant all the way along, which will help with the realism of this. You can also, I mean, I'm using pen, but you can use pencil. You can use, you can actually draw in the entire line, however you want to do it. Right, so that's those marked in. And what I'll do is I'll just go and add these in now. Right, you'll see here there is a bit of surface detail. There's an engraved circle. So if, for example, maybe if I zoom you right, no, that's as close as it will go on this setting. If, for example, the line went here, then the advantage of doing this oil paint in your engraved detail is you can see that, stop, jump over and carry on the other side. Because we don't want rivets through things like filler caps and that kind of thing. There we go. What I will do as well is along this panel line is I'll just do the leading edge. Right, I've turned the aircon off. Otherwise it creates an annoying noise in the background, and I'm actually boiling now. It's only 47 degrees outside, so not too warm. So you can see just by lining up the little markings, we don't actually have to draw the whole thing out. But sometimes I do, because it is useful to see the whole pattern before you go in. And if you do draw the, here's that panel line, look. If you do draw it all in, you may be able to do your rivet line freehand, but so many times I get a bit cocky, draw it in freehand, and then it's all a bit wobbly and wonky and looks rubbish. So nearly at the end. Now obviously if you're doing an actual aeroplane, a set of rivet plans are really, really useful. Widely available on the internet, just do a quick Google search and you'll find loads of them. But what I also find really helpful are photographs of the real thing, because you can't always rely on plans. Right, here we go. So I'm just turning it round because that curve is going to make it really difficult to hold on to the guide, and we're actually going to go the other way this time. There we go. So that's all the, shall we say, vertical ones done. Now we need to do the horizontal ones. There's a couple of ways of doing this. First one is the old Mark 1 eyeball. So on this one we're just going to mark halfway, and this one here we're going to go halfway as well. And again, we'll just line this up. Oh, there we go. So that's the disadvantage of using it sometimes. You kind of smudge it away. But no drama. We'll just go and put that back in. Right, so that's that done. Now for this panel here. Quite often what I'll do is this panel line that's running along here, I will just continue that over, but it's not quite in the middle. So what I'll do is I'll just mark this one, eyeballing it roughly in the middle, and then chop it in half, chop it in half. So we're going to do another 3 lines on this one. Now what is useful is we can use the panel line and just eyeball it so it's parallel. You could measure it. That looks pretty good to me. Spin it around and then we'll just eyeball this one against the other panel line. And actually that's perfectly lined up with the other panel line as well. So I know that's going to be parallel. And then what I'm going to do is, you could use the clear tape, but I'm just going to mark the middle. Done. Don't know if you can see that in the light. Let's try and bring you in. There. So you can see how awesome that looks already, how much more busy the surface is. Right. Come on, focus now. There we go. I'm just going to remove the markings on these panels here, as much as I can. Get rid of those as well. Now, measuring. So I've got here this, as I said before, this punch guide. I'm just going to line that up, and then using the holes as a measuring thing, and obviously you can use any old ruler, I'm just going to mark off that one. So that's one on the edge, 1, 2, 3, that's right. And again 3 on the leading edge one. I'm just comparing it to the other. So that's 1 there, 1 there, 1 there. And again, we only need to do 1, because we can just use the Mark 1 eyeball and make sure this is parallel. Flip it round, keep the nut out of the way. Oops, all right, almost slipped there. Now it's getting a bit tricky because this is on the curved surface, so now we can use the tape. Oh, that's my speaker turning itself off. So we can just line up the tape. Oh, I'm not even in shot, here we go. Right, sorry about that. Right, lining up the tape. Looks pretty parallel to me. Okay, so here we have this filler cap here. This line just misses it, but I think this one might be going through it. So what I'll do is let's use the clear tape. Just about going to get away with that. It just misses. Wow, brilliant. Okay, and while I've got this in hand, let's do now, fortuitously, and this is also when this happens, stick the tape down and actually it lines up with this mark and this mark. So this is going to be super efficient. Nearly went a little bit wobbly there, just about saved it. Right, that's most of it done. Now all I've got to do is the wingtip. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use the panel lines as a guide, and actually I'm going to freehand this one using the tape. Again here. So I'm not actually against the tape, I'm just going to keep about 1 millimetre equidistant. And then in the middle of this one we need another row. Done. Finished. You didn't see any of that. Sorry about that. I really ought to keep an eye on where the camera's pointing. But that's the wingtip done there. So if I zoom you out, move this out of the way. Here's one I did earlier, and I've gone in and I've just highlighted the rivet holes with the oil paint, so you can see there the overall effect of the riveted wing. Right, so that wing there took me what, 10 minutes? Unfortunately this is a biplane, and I've got, that's not all of it, come on, I've got all this to do now. So thank you very much, and let's just dip over to the chair and we'll just have a bit of a debrief. There we go. So I think this thing is a really, really handy tool. I think it's great. The flexibility you get with this as compared to some of the other systems and products that are out there, I think this is great. It really does remind me of the RB Productions rivet wheels, which were photo etched. Pretty much the same sort of system, but the packaging in this is really nice. You can't get the RB Productions ones anymore. That appears to have finished, unfortunately, because Radu had produced some amazingly innovative tools and products and things. So yeah, and obviously Rosie the riveter is, I think they're out of production now as well, but obviously they were quite expensive, and you've got to buy one whole system just for one wheel. Where obviously here you get the box of 3. They do. I've got the small ones, the small wheels. They do sets with the bigger wheels, which will be easier for sort of big airframes and things like that. The reason why I've gone for all the small ones is you can get right into the nooks and crannies, and rather than buying a big and a small set, I thought I'd just go for the small. I'm quite experienced at riveting using these sorts of things because I do it all the time. So if you're just starting out, maybe go for the bigger wheel because it's going to be easier. Then you get your eye in, and then go for the smaller one as well. Like I say, to get in those nooks and crannies. But
a great tool and highly recommended. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.